Hello everybody. This is Claudio La Sala here. This is a virtual brown bag. It's that time of the day, that time of the week where we get together here to share stuff. As usual, I'll go through a quick introduction here, give folks some time to join in, as well as explain what these things are all about for those of us who are not familiar with the meetings. So what these meetings are all about, these are a place, this is a place where we get together and we share tools or shortcuts that we use a lot. We share articles, books, blog posts, something that we may have read and we feel like it would be helpful to other people to know about it. We share experiences, maybe you've learned something doing it the hard way, and once you figure it out, you feel like sharing with other people. That would be great, and maybe somebody else has also figured the same stuff out, and know of a better way of doing it or a different way of doing it. It's always good to exchange experiences like that. We share also frustrations or difficulties. Maybe you're trying to get something done and you can't quite figure it out. Well, bring it up here. Maybe somebody else has gone through the same problem. Or maybe we can just do a live troubleshooting session here. Sometimes we find a solution. Sometimes we at least can point you in the right direction. So that's how we roll. The idea here is not to have a typical user group or conference type of presentation. The idea here is to have somebody proposing a topic or start talking about something, and everybody else just chimes in and we have a conversation. We do this every Thursday here on live meeting from 12 p.m. Central Time to 1. It's open, free for everybody. Anybody who would like to share or learn is more than welcome. And those of us who do both, that's even better, right? So don't be shy. If you have anything that you have to share here, make sure to go ahead and let us know. This is a partial list of topics that we've covered so far. We've been all over the place, as you can see by this list, and that's the kind of stuff that motivates me into coming back, because we never know exactly what we're going to be talking about, what we're going to be learning today. So I think that's exciting and refreshing. We have an official virtualbrownbag.com website that you can send that link to your friends, coworkers, whoever else that you feel like could benefit from these meetings or contribute to these meetings. In that website, you're going to find a list to recordings that I'm personally right now working on rendering those videos. We have a backlog of like 8 weeks, I think, because our automated process was not working. So I had to just manually download the videos, render them, and now upload them to Vidler so that you guys can watch it later. So I'm working on that and trying to fix the automation problems that we were having. The way these meetings work, somebody like myself or JB or George, whoever is available, will kickstart the meeting like I'm doing right now, explain the general guidelines as to how we proceed with these meetings. And then from there on, people just start talking about different things. And if you have anything to share and you don't want to interrupt the person who's talking, you can just turn your feedback flag on live meetings to yellow, and that way we know that you would like to share something. From there on, we just go taking turns as to who's doing not most of the talk, but just leading the conversation on whichever topic we've chose. If you would like to ask questions, you can just open up your microphone and start talking. That will be fine. If you don't have a microphone, or if you're just too shy to speak out loud like that, you can always use the live meeting Q&A feature. Just type out your questions, or you can also use that feature to type out comments or post links that you would like to share. So the option is there. You use however you want it. Sharing, whenever you are presenting, so whenever you're promoted to a presenter, you can, through live meeting, get an option to start sharing something on your screen. If you've never done it, it's pretty easy. Just let us know and we'll walk you through the process. It's essentially, you're 2 clicks away from sharing something on your screen so that the other people can see it. So just let us know and we can walk you through the process. If at any point in time afterwards you have ideas, questions, or suggestions, just send them our way. and you know, anything that can make these meetings better, more productive, more interesting. You know, we're definitely open to hear it. And all right, so cool. As usual, I guess I'll just go ahead and go down a list of things that I've collected over the last couple of days or weeks sometimes and share those with you. So we've shared several times here about these cons, which are essentially exercises that people can follow, and these exercises come in shape of unit tests that you can essentially run these tests, or they give you the tests saying, okay, you need to do the sum of 2 plus 2 in this language, and then here's the test, and then you have to write some code and see the test pass, and then move on. And of course, they give you hints as to how you're supposed to approach that task. So I've personally done the Ruby cons so far, which is pretty good. I have on my list of things to do, look into the JavaScript one, and a couple of days ago, I just ran across this one on CoffeeScript, right? So it's the same idea, right? You have some exercises to go through and then learn CoffeeScript. And since that's becoming a big thing, I felt like that would be something useful to other people as well. I haven't started on it myself yet. I haven't had the time, but it's one of the links that I'm saving on my to check out list. Let's see. Rick sent us a link to these, it's like a cheaper alternative to GoDaddy, dnsimple.com. Rick, you want to talk about it? Do you have any experience with this service yet? I'm not sure if you have a microphone hooked up there. If you want to just share on the Q&A, let's see.
Can you hear me?
Oh, it was John who said that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yep, sure.
Basically, I just saw this on Twitter, but at the bottom, if you scroll down, there's a bunch of stuff that automatically configures the site for Heroku and a bunch of other things. It sounds like you have a lot more control over what you're doing. And it has an API that you can register and manage your domains and all sorts of things like that. And it's $2 cheaper than GoDaddy. So I haven't had any experience with it, but I saw. I think Rachel Appel tweeted it, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, thanks for the link. I have to look up. I remember JB pointed me out to a site that's kind of like this that made it a lot easier for me to configure stuff like that, DNS, emails, and all that. But now I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. Yeah, I'll have to look it up because I remember I was on a hurry. He just pointed me out to it, and I have that written down someplace here. But cool, yeah, that's good stuff, the kind of stuff that we are always looking for here. Let's see, what else? This is something that I just found on my Evernote here that I had saved a while ago. It's an interesting blog post, right? Programming achievements, how to level up as a developer. I'm always looking for this kind of literature and presentations to see what other people think should be useful. So he goes about, how do you know whether you're a successful developer or not, yada, yada, yada. But what's interesting here is that he lists like a bunch of stuff that you could do to improve yourself as a developer, right? And then he organizes those in groups. And there's even some place, I don't remember, maybe, some place on this post, I don't recall, but people have started to create like GitHub repositories to say like what things of this list they started doing and what their experiences are, and if there's code, they submit that code for people to look into. But I found it to be interesting. Like, for instance, write an application in a functional language, right? Write an application in an object-oriented language. Write an application in a prototype-based language, right? So a bunch of those. And granted, I mean, there are some of those things that you may be like myself, like, I don't feel like doing that. Like, for instance, write a program in assembly language. I'm like, I see how that could, make me a better developer for, understanding things that right now I don't. But I'm like, that to me, it's not something that appeals to me personally. It's not the kind of thing that I feel excited as a developer. But like functional languages, yeah, that's kind of cool. Object-oriented languages, definitely. Writing a non-trivial web app, a non-trivial desktop app, mobile app, and so on and so forth. Here's another one that I don't see myself doing it at any time soon. Write a B3 database. Like, sorry, nope, not that geek. Or actually, let me rephrase, I'm not that smart. Enlighten yourself with cons, katas, so that's kind of cool, like complete 5 code katas, complete the programming cons for a language that you want to learn. So those things are definitely, the thing that I personally relate to. Programming the open, contribute to an open source project. That's something that I've mentioned here before that I've been doing myself, in the sense that I've been using open source project, and so far my contribution has been, going to the open source site and then posting like bugs that I may have found, or things that I thought that the thing would do, and it doesn't, because some of these open source projects that I'm using, I'm still just too new to the things. Like, for instance, in the Rails stuff that I'm doing, and I'm like, I have no idea how to fix this. I don't know. Right, I found the weird behavior, but I have no idea how to fix it. But eventually, I guess, as I get better at it, maybe I should be able to start contributing to an open source project that I use a lot, I guess. So that would be cool. Learn by teaching others is something that I definitely practice a lot. And I think I've been through almost all of these. Yeah, present a lightning talk, present a user group, conference, training course, tutorial. I've done all those. Publish a constructive code review of an open source project. Now that's an interesting one that I've never done, and I guess it's something that I probably should do it sometime soon. Writing a programming book, oh man, I just don't have time for that kind of commitment. I've been approached by people to write a book for, 10 years now. I just never find the time to do so. I'm more like, well, if I do have time to sit down and write something, I guess I just write to my personal blog or to some website's blog like I'm doing with Ruby Source, because yes, it does take you time, but it's not the same as like taking a whole year to write a single book. So, I don't know. It's just the way I feel about those. But anyways, it's just something I felt like sharing. Again, it's not something I would do every single one of those, but yeah, I do see like how doing some of those would make sense. Like this case here, writing a testing framework. Somebody may say, well, but there are so many testing frameworks out there already. Well, the point here is not to create a testing framework to have other people use, unless you write a kick-ass testing framework. The idea is just to exercise, right? It's like, well, okay, I've been doing Ruby and Rails for a couple of months now. I've been seeing how Cucumber, how RSpec works. Oh, let me try to write something simpler but similar to that, just to see if I understand the metaprogramming part of Ruby and the way to create DSLs and stuff like that, right? It's just that the exercise here that counts. So that was that. Let's see. Other thing I've run across on Twitter a couple of days ago, I think, was the war between developers, designers, and project managers. I found this to be so accurate and funny, right? So how developers are seen by developers, or how they are seen by how designers are seen by developers, and so on and so forth. I like the one, how designers are seen by designers. It's kind of cool. Let's see. So going down my list here. All right, another cool site that I didn't know about until I think 1 or 2 months ago is this Refactor My Code. So if you have like a little code snippet that you feel like there's got to be a way or maybe you want to know if there is a way to write it better, shorter, in a more concise or a more understandable way, you can just post it to the site, and then people are going to tell you, here are some alternatives. And sometimes it's even something simple like this, right? This is Ruby, right? And the guy is doing like a for loop going 1 to 10, just print out the value of I, right? And then to me, it was just interesting seeing the different ways that you can write that. This way here is actually very similar to how we do stuff in C#, for instance, with lambda expressions and stuff like that. And then it's just, fun to see the many ways that one could do that. Like this one, I had no idea. Puts, and then what's your array, or your range, actually. You turn that into an array, and then Ruby would do the iteration for you. I didn't know that. I found this one to be interesting, right? Oh, if you want to go from 1 to 10 and you want to print that out, just say puts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, right? That's another way of doing it. But I like stuff like this, right? If what you want to do is just say, I want to do it 10 times, right? Something that Ruby gives you. And again, it's just a cool site to see the different ways to do that. So sometimes I just come here. I don't have anything to post, but I just click refactorings there, and I walk down the list and say, oh, let me check this one out, because I've been learning lots from something like that as well. Let's see what else. 3 more links to go over here before I shut up. On the Virtual Brown Bag site, do not forget that there is a suggested topic page where you can go in here and type out some sort of topic that either you would like to talk about because you've experienced it, or because you would like to have somebody else talk about, right? Because you don't know much about it and you would like to get experiences from other people. Once you've put that in there, people can come in here and vote for the topics. So we keep coming back here and see, what's hot, what people would like to talk about, and we take it from there. So please make sure to use that feature there. Let's see. This morning I just blogged about just a couple of tips for presenters, because most of you know that I've been doing lots of presentations over the last several years, and last year I decided to late last year I decided to take a break from that, just take a step back and do lots of learning, and I've been sharing those, like getting out of my comfort zone, and learning Ruby on Rails, started to use the Mac as my main machine as opposed to the Windows, which I had been using for like 20 plus years. And then besides taking that step back, I've also decided to just go and attend to conferences where I would not be speaking, because usually when you go to a conference as a speaker, you end up getting so busy with preparing for your sessions that you hardly ever get a chance to go attend to other people's sessions, and there's always lots of good stuff in there. So I decided, I just want to go as an attendee, sit there and try to learn stuff. And while I learned a lot of stuff from that, I also learned things that speakers should not do. And it's something that I've been guilty of doing it, and some of those I fixed over the last couple of years, but some are like, man, these guys have been doing this for just as long as I have, and it doesn't work well. Like, for instance, if you are a speaker, right, and you are presenting, and you have only one big screen that people are looking at, it's fine to just walk around. It's good for you to walk around and not remain standing still in a single place. And then like pointing at the screen where you want to draw people's attention to. Now, if you are like in this picture where you're in a big room with 2 or more monitors, and then you walk up to one monitor and you point something at that monitor, oh man, that drives me nuts. Right, and the other attendees as well. right? Because if there's like 200 people in there, it's a big room, and then you're pointing to one screen. Well, the guy on the other end of the room, he's not going to be seeing what you're pointing at because it's too small, or because you're right in front of the screen from his perspective, right? So, well, how do you fix that? Just use the mouse, right? Just walk back to your computer or get one of those remote mouses that you can use while walking around the room and use the mouse pointer, right? Because that's the one thing that everybody's going to be seeing on every screen because it's being projected, right? It's such a simple thing, and every time I see presenters doing that, and again, myself included, once in a while I'm like, why the hell am I pointing this if there's like 3 screens here? Or what about the other people, right? So that's something there. Also, another thing that I've been seeing people do is, having slides that show code. That's good, right? Because that way you don't have to bore people with your, with you mistyping stuff, or stumbling through the keyboard. And it's good to help with the flow of your presentation, because you put on the slides the code as you want to talk through them. Now, if each one of those slides has a lot of code, that does not help. Like at some of these conferences I've been to, I'm sitting there and the guy's talking about the code, and I'm like, dude, there's like 100 lines of code in that slide. I cannot read them all because now the fonts are too small. And as the guy's talking through it, there's no reference. I'm like, is he talking about the first line of the code, or the 10th line, or the last line? I don't know. So I keep like scanning the slide, trying to picture what is it that the guy's talking about. And the fix to that is simple. Well, one is refactor the code, right, so that you have less code to show on the screen. Sometimes, of course, that's not an option, because there's, it's just as much as it takes to get the thing to work. So what you should do is just to at least zoom into the code, right? Use like Zoom It or whatever other tool to zoom into the part of the code that you are talking about currently. That way people can read what you're talking about, and they can focus on the parts that you are talking about. It's just like, I don't know, I take those as common sense, but because I've seen a lot of people not doing that, I said, you know what, let me blog about, just to make sure that I put that out there. Hopefully somebody's gonna, read it and tell the speaker, look, don't forget this, or even myself, right? So if you see me doing a presentation and I'm falling into these traps, remind me of my own post. And also, the other thing that I had to say is, like, I had this blog post a while ago, when the geniuses talk or write, I sleep, essentially. Because, I mean, sometimes you go to a session and you're like, okay, this is topic X. I understand it's a hard topic to understand, so let me go to the session and hopefully I'm going to learn something about it. But just the way that the presenter structures the material, or the way they talk, it flies way over my head, and I sit there thinking, dude, this topic is already pretty complex, and you're not making it any easier. I mean, there's no point for me sitting here because I'm not learning anything, right? And then you talk about that to some speakers. They say, well, but people are coming from the in-depth material. And it's like, based on the experience that I've had, usually 80% of the people who are sitting at a session, they are new to the thing. They are just trying to learn that stuff. And 20% of the people already know a little bit about it, or, maybe quite a bit about it, and they're trying to go and learn some more in-depth material. So if you lose that 20% of people, I mean, and usually those 20%, if they're not happy with your material because they think it's too basic, they're going to just walk out and find something else. And myself as a speaker, I don't care. I'm like, well, yep, it's not what they want, just, go. No problem. I'd rather lose 20% of the people who are not getting what they want than lose those 80% who are there to learn something. right? And usually those 80%, they're not the ones that are going to just walk out on you. They're just going to give you bad ratings. It's like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or he doesn't teach well. So, just leveraging those things and making sure to, break stuff into small chunks that people can actually learn. Don't try to, impress people. Because sometimes I sit there at those sessions and I'm like, is this guy just trying to sound really smart? Or is he trying to make me sound stupid? Or he's just oblivious to what he's presenting? He's just out there talking and not caring about what other people think. So, anyways, my rants there about the subject, and I've posted some notes to some tips from Phil Hack and Scott Hanselman that they've had. They're pretty good about preparing for presentations and, just how to proceeding with the presentation. So that's that. And then last but not least, something totally unrelated to software, but since some of you know that I play in a metal band here in Houston, we just put out a new single. It's called Blindfold. So check it out. Even if you don't like the music, just hit play there. It's going to help us getting some exposure in this site, and that way other people who do like this kind of music is going to be aware of the music that we're making there. So that would be cool. And maybe you know people who like this kind of music, so just send the link over to that person. And that's it. That's what I had on my list. Who's next? Looking at the list here, nobody has a yellow flag waving. What's up with that?
I can talk about some stuff, I guess, I didn't get to, but...
Cool.
Why don't you throw it over to me? I need to minimize stuff. Yeah.
I minimize all those screens with the Viagra emails that you get and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe not the emails, but the screen where you're placing an order for it, right?
Right, where I'm following through, because honestly, it seemed like such a good deal. That's all I'm saying.
It's like, you buy one, you get two.
So timely. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, whatever. This seems good. Yeah. Let's see. Share my guy. Share my own desktop. So, we'll see if this works, because last few times I tried, it slowed down my computer like a ridiculous amount. Hopefully it won't this time. A little while ago, I did a presentation on JavaScript, and I want to pull it up because I made an example page for it that I think could be kind of interesting, and I've actually used some of the stuff I learned in doing that since. So, hold on. What was it? It was... hold on. Let me find that link. There we go. This is at the Baton Rouge user group. So this is where I did my talk on JavaScript. And I basically, I created this page, just kind of show off the various examples in it. I think I wanted to show this on the VBB before and never got a chance to. But there's a thing that I'm doing here where basically I'm running little bits of code. I'm pulling in little bits of code and running them. And you can see that as I click the stuff, when the code gets pulled in, it gets run. So the stuff it gets dropped down to the thing, and also the new code gets displayed. And also it's all syntax highlighted and everything. So the thing that's happening, that's driving this, and actually I'm running this just out of Dropbox. So this is everything that's happening is happening client side. like this is, you can see this just goes directly to a Dropbox page. That's HTML. So I just wanted to kind of show this technique and show where, like actually a pretty cool use I found for it since then that's in production. So let's pull up, just do view source on this. You can kind of see I have a list elements that are going to, that just for the anchor links are going to have are going to have links to the page that I want to the JavaScript that I want to pull in when I go there. I'm going ahead and hitting a CDN, and I'm pulling in, where is it? I'm pulling in this Alexander Gorbachev stuff, which is actually the syntax highlighting. This is what Scott Hanselman talks about when what he uses. It's called syntax highlighter, I believe.
So this approach will not work if you don't have internet connection, right?
Well, sure. I mean, no, but you could just pull these over locally, right?
That would be fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just doing that because I don't feel like hosting the CDN out of my Dropbox.
Right.
And of course, I'm pulling in jQuery from a CDN as well. Yeah, this is it right here, syntax highlighter. It's pretty cool. You can, actually, he updated it recently. And then this is a little bit of code that makes it work. So you kind of look at this. Well, here's that little iframe that I have at the top to pull in the slide share, and here's my list, and then here's just a container which I have for the code. So when I click on the list, I go ahead and I create a new script element, which I'm going to send the source code of it to that href value. So basically, when I create that element, it's going to go ahead and do a query to the server, get this file, and then once it does that, I'm gonna, well, in this case, I'm just triggering another get, but it's already cached, right? Because it just fetched it, so it only does one query to the server, and then this time, because I'm pulling it in from the same domain, I can pull it in as a string, and I go ahead and grab it, and I just create a new pre element and stick it into this div right here. So it's actually, but I'm not doubling up on anything. I'm just going ahead, grabbing that file, and at the same time executing it and attaching it here. Now I could just, eval the file as well on here, but this is just a little bit more correct and has a little bit more browser security built in. So this is kind of a cool thing. At our company Surge, we've got our Surge platform, which is, I don't think we're planning on releasing it, but we haven't released it yet, but the documentation on it is public, so I have no problem with showing that. So I've been going through it, and I've been doing a lot of the documentation for it, and it's been all, oh, actually, you know what, I can't, it's not on here. It's not on there. I thought I could. Where I've been using this in production is for a sample project for our platform, where on each demo page of each component that we want to demo, I go ahead and I use the same kind of technique to place the little bit of code that is needed to execute the demo, and then at the same time execute that same bit of code. And it's comes out as really neat because basically what people are able to do, they're able to see the exact code that's executed, highlighted and everything. So this is really cool for API documentation and demos, stuff like this. I guess any questions on this? Just kind of a little technique I wanted to show. Oh, I got a QA question. That is empty.
Oh.
Okay.
Hey, George, can you make that
Mhm.
available so we can
Yeah,
copy it?
available if you go to. Yeah, sure. This is where I gave this presentation to Baton Rouge .NET user group. So Tiny, it was in August. So Tiny URL 811-BRDNUG. And I think that'll take you to my speaker rate page, from which the website actually. Well, okay. So I have a link right here to it. So this is the link. 0811 BRDNUG examples. I will also post this. And I will post this in the notes right now.
Cool, thanks.
Where's our notes on here? Oh, I don't think I can post notes if I am sharing my screen. But yeah, that's the URL right there. Go ahead to it, and like I said, this is all client side, so you can just Control U, and you'll be able to see the code. And there are definitely slicker ways of doing it. This was just kind of a really quick way of doing it. Oh, here's something that I want to pull up, because I do notice I'm returning false here, which in this case is actually probably not what I should do. There's an article that I read kind of recently. And it's jQuery events, but really it's just for JavaScript in general. Basically what it's talking about is, in order to stop event propagation, a lot of people will return false after their method handlers and their event handlers, but that's not necessarily what you want. There are 4 different variations on what you want to happen to events, and return false is just one of them, and it's actually the most inclusive one. So what you might want to do, so I would recommend reading through this article to make sure that at any given time you're using the correct thing that actually does what you want it to do. Because as your application grows in size, this becomes a bigger and bigger issue, where, for example, a component might be watching the document node for any clicks at all and making adjustments in response to that, maybe logging or something. But because you returned false, you've not only prevented it from navigating to that link, but you've also stopped propagation, so it's never going to receive that event. So, really recommend just reading through this and taking a look at it. Let's see what else. Oh, this was another thing that I learned recently. Recently I started looking at the jQuery Deferred object. Something that got added in jQuery 1.5 and is really, really cool, actually. The basic idea is that it gives you another way of working with stuff that requires callbacks, other than having to handle the callbacks all the time, over and over again. And let me think if I have an example I can show. I probably do not. No, I don't. But basically it's this. So what's a function that takes a callback would be something like get JSON, right? Or .get. So let me copy this guy right here. We'll go ahead and do sample. See if I can grab this. There we go. So I'm going to dot get this. I'm going to send it 0 there, and then when that's done, I'm going to function ex. So log x. See what I screw up there? Oh. There you go. So I went to the server, I did an HTTP request, I got a file, and I printed the response of it out of there. Now, this gets a problem, and if you've worked with JavaScript, you've seen it happen where this handler right here grows and grows and grows and becomes huge, and you have a bunch of different variations on it that get used in different ways. So, since jQuery 1.5, they refactored this stuff where it can still take this callback parameter, but oftentimes, what you can do also is return a deferred, which basically is an object that then you could start attaching handlers to. So I'm going to say when it's done, that's when I'm going to run it. And you see the same exact thing happens. But the neat thing is I can go ahead and attach multiple callbacks to it, right? I can say, and I can attach another handler to it. They'll do that. Actually, and see, both of them get called. Actually, let me pull that up into here, so you can kind of look at it side by side. And why I think that this ends up looking a lot cleaner. I can then be attaching, you know, maybe I'm worried about this HTTP request as well, in which case I can do dot fail, I believe it's called, function. Console.log HTTP request failed. And then this is the general handler of whenever it enters either the successful or the failed state. So log and HTTP request finished. So now if I go ahead and let me see, let me clear this out. I'm going to run this. And you'll see, okay, an HTTP request succeeded and it finished. Now, let's smug my keyword, my URL a little bit. And you'll see, get an HTTP request failed. I guess then doesn't run, only runs when it succeeds then. I was incorrect about that. The place where this becomes really useful is when you're writing your own asynchronous code, and it's pretty awesome to return the jQuery deferred. For example, I recently had a situation where I had to wait for both the jQuery ready event to occur and the jQuery mobile page ready event to occur, but I didn't know what order they might occur in. Well, since each one of them returns a deferred, all I had to do was combine the two deferreds, and there's a nice utility method called when in it, in which you enter defer 1 and defer 2, and then it will turn to you another defer that will, well, that the events on it will trigger only when both of those, either when both of those succeeds, it will trigger the successful event, or when either one of those fails, it will trigger the fail event. So I really recommend people who just use a lot of jQuery go read up on it. This is a pretty kick-ass system. I've been using it a lot in the last week or two, Just anytime you need to work with asynchronous stuff, this can end up being a heck of a lot simpler than callbacks and just look a lot nicer. And I wasn't thinking about presenting today, so I didn't write any demos, but I'll write a little demo about the sort of stuff you can do with it for next time. But in the meantime, I just recommend reading through it. Okay. And I think that's all I have to talk about.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. That's good stuff. Writing those links down. Can you bring up that the link to the JavaScript stuff that you had there? I didn't quite get the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was a tiny URL,
Right there.
I think.
Yeah, tinyurl.com 0811 BR-BRD the dash examples.
Examples. Cool. Got it. Awesome.
Yeah. And for those of you that are going to be at Houston Tech Fest, I'll be doing a similar talk on jQuery called All of jQuery. So I'll have a similar thing up there for that.
Cool.
All right.
Excellent. Cool. Let's see. Thank you. Let's see. Hey, John, you had mentioned you were going to try to share something on the Windows 8 stuff?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, wow, that was my worry. Let's see, so how do I share something on my desktop?
Yeah, let me promote you to a presenter. Alright, so now you should see a content button up there in live meeting.
Okay.
And then you
Yes,
click there, you click share, and then you can do share a program, share your desktop, the whole thing, or just a selected area in your desktop.
Okay.
Alright.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm seeing some mountains. Yep. I'm seeing some mountains in the current time.
Well, I just got a picture of, just north of Houston, and I put it on the screen. So.
Yep.
Okay, so last time it was asked if anybody had spent any time with Windows 8, and I'd said I'd spent a little bit of time reviewing the keynotes that were given at the Build conference the week before last.
Right.
I downloaded the software. They have a 64-bit with developer tools and installed that on a Oracle VirtualBox. So I can give a quick 10-minute compressed introduction if you'd like, just to see what's there. So one of the keys is shortcuts for people without touch screens. It's really touch first, but you can use keyboard and mouse. And getting out of this screen, which is the splash screen, was very difficult. But it's actually enter is the way to bring up the prompt. They also have a touch login, so you can set it up where you can put a picture in there and touch certain points, and it will log you in. This is the Windows 8 start screen. It's basically looks like a phone screen. It allows you to group tiles together that are logically grouped. If I had touch, I don't know how to do it with a keyboard and mouse, but you can zoom this in and out. So this replaces the Windows Start button. But it's a little more than that. It's also what they call live tiles. So applications can show some of their content in the form of tiles. So if you've got a news session or a weather app or a stock application, you can stream some data that people might want to see. Again, if I had a touch screen, I could zoom in and out on this whole thing to get a better view of my groups. Unfortunately, they just let people line stuff up horizontally, which seems a little bit limiting. You'd think you'd want to be able to place these icons or these tiles anywhere you'd want, but at least in this version you can't.
anytime they do like panel displays like this, or like on anything, since back since when, before even the Google widgets, desktop widgets, like it's always weather and stocks. And honestly, I don't think most people care about either of those all that much. I think it's mostly just like to show off that they can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does give, I think that what they wanted to do in this at least was to demonstrate the various flavors. So you've got these bigger tiled apps, little tiled apps. The guy basically said, icons are so last century. So I guess you've got to move on to tiles. Most of these games are things they had their college interns do this summer. So you can do things like play the piano. Oh. That's actually, if you've got kids, you don't want to hear Claire de Lune again. So, hitting the Windows key is what I use to go back and forth between apps. Again, you can scroll left to right. This is the Windows desktop. Looks a lot like Windows. But one thing they said is this is a Metro app all by itself. So apparently it's an app instead of a full-blown desktop. But you can do all your normal stuff here, except there's no start menu. When you press start, you come back to this, which I think is going to be pretty disconcerting to a few people. Basically the opening keynote, which is a very interesting couple hours if you want to get an overview, they were really pitching to the developers who were at the Build conference. They were talking about the 500 million Windows applications or Windows machines out there, and that there's a whole new ecosystem here waiting to be filled up with apps. So they were trying to get developers excited about building Metro apps. Like any touch device, I guess there's certain form factors that an application takes. It's not free form. You can't take these applications and float them around. They're meant to be full screen and immersive. So you've basically got 3 or 4 different sizes of apps you can do. You can do these little tiles. You can also, this is an app that's socialite. So this is their Facebook front end, where you can go in and look at your news feeds and various things like that. This is kind of an example of a grid app. So they've got a few different flavors of types of apps. Internet Explorer. And these things are meant to be full screen. So they're meant to take up the whole screen on your touch device. The build website you'll find on MSDN gives you a good overview of the environment, and then there's also Metro style apps, so how to build these applications, download the preview. I wouldn't necessarily install it on a machine that you need because it is pretty pre-release. You can do things like, Alt-Tab between applications. I don't know whether that comes across on the virtual meeting. Let's see. So 3 minutes. It also comes with Visual Studio Express and Expressions Blend. So I'll bring up Visual Studio. At the programming level, there's now something called Win Runtime, which is a new set of APIs that are available to programs to use. So you can use those APIs and program in C or C++. You can program in C#, VB, JavaScript. So the projects, when you start a new project, you can create a project in JavaScript and Visual Basic, C#, and you can create different types of apps. So what I did was create what they call a grid app in C#. So you can see, unlike the old, .NET world, come on, open. There's XAML files for the presentation and then the C# code behind. If I opened up the C++ project instead of a C# file, you'd see a C in a header file. If I opened up the JavaScript version, let's see. Here's the landing page. Let me just run this. You can see you have an application with grids. You can drill down. Anyway, it gives you a place to start. This installed really easily in a VirtualBox. Those guide presentations and videos are really a good place to start if you want to learn more. So it's interesting. I think it seems like it's got a long way to go. It's a little scary, and it's a whole other set of stuff to go off and figure out not only how to program, but how, what's appropriate in that environment.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that scares me, and it's beaten me in the past from Microsoft when they release something like this. I mean, they don't really release; they throw it out there like a year before it's going to actually come out, and then you put a lot of effort into learning it, where the resources are kind of here and there. You cannot really easily find stuff to learn, or you can only find how to do the basics, and then as you want to get down to doing something more complicated, then you're off on your own. And just so that a couple of releases down, like CTPs down, then Microsoft comes by and says, oh, that feature, yeah, we just dropped because it was not popular, or because we are changing direction or whatever. That's the kind of stuff that scares me.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very early. Those college interns were basically the first set of people to go off and do all these test apps. But this keynote's a really interesting thing to listen to if you want to just spend a couple hours.
Right.
But I mean, what is there really that's new to learn? There's like the form factor and a couple of new JavaScript and .NET libraries, or is there? I mean, what's really new here?
Let me share
to
some.
learn. I mean, clearly it looks pretty good.
Share. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the slide that shows the new WinRT libraries. This is basically a whole nother, it's the next generation of Windows APIs. So it's, a superset of of Win32 and all the other APIs, basically refactored and cleaned up so that they can service all those various languages. So from your Metro app, you don't actually go hit Win32 or .NET directly. You go through this layer. It's very heavily asynchronously enabled by default. They basically want you to go asynchronous on anything over like 50 milliseconds. One of the developers' sub-presentations I listened to, they talked about how to partition your apps up from your GUI thread to your code behind thread to the threads handling communication and things like that. Apps are supposed to swap in and swap out in like 5 seconds so they can shut down a machine.
So that's why we're pushing JavaScript so hard. Okay, cool.
They really pushed. There was another slide that showed where the operating system was at this point in time. So with Windows 7 on a 1 gigabyte Atom processor on a netbook was using 5% of the processor, 404 megabytes of memory and 32 processes. And then on Windows 8, it was using 1% of the CPU, 280 megabytes of memory, and what's the other one? 28 apps running, 28 processes running. So they really talk about how they are not only not bloating Windows, they're shrinking it. They talk about the fact that there's a lot of other form factors of devices just besides PCs. And, I see this and I get a little scared they're forgetting the PC, but we'll see how it plays, I guess.
Well, I mean, forgetting the PC is with you can still write web apps for everything.
Yep.
Right. That's kind of what everyone's moving to anyway, so. Like this all seems like good stuff, but way too far away. Windows Phone 7 seemed like really good stuff too, and I think it was, but I haven't looked at it, even though it's out already. Yeah. Because it was like so obviously not going to get any serious adoption, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there's two problems. One is just Microsoft being late to the game, and the other is just people having that bad taste from the previous phones that Microsoft has put out. It's like, meh. Kind of like, whatever, dude.
But I mean, razzle-dazzle applications, like demos, a year ahead of time, I think excite no one.
Right.
Like, what does that really do? I mean, people write the obligatory review articles, but I don't know of any developer that takes that seriously.
Well, I'm sure all the big shops. I'm sure all the big shops are trying to get their apps ported and be, leading edge on this stuff, just because they do. I mean, the same kind of people that produce stuff for the touchpad, they're going to be off producing them for this. Hopefully this will be more successful. But
you mean all the shops that still can't get off of i6?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I on this one, I would just, give it some time, see, if people are going to be adopting it, and then I'll, jump on the bandwagon.
I mean, I hope they do. It looks pretty awesome.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to be scary though, if they if they hurt their current developers, if people who run Windows feel like they're being left behind, and to assume that everything's a touch interface and portable device versus I'm sitting here in front of two big screens. I have a hard time figuring I could do development on my iPad.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's just part of the razzle dazzle.
Right.
But anyway, so like I said, the build resources are a good place just to go if you want a little more information. There's articles. I mean, it's only been a week and a half since they announced all this, so stuff's starting to come out a little bit.
Cool. All right. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing, John, because I had been hearing about it here and there on Twitter and just, just skim through some blog posts. I'm like, I'll just give it time. On this one, I'm gonna let other people figure it out and then tell me whether I should look into it or not. Just not much time right now to dive into things that are like a year away, but hopefully it will catch up. Cool. All right, guys. I guess it's that time when we have to wrap things up, and I hope to see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.